Hello everyone and welcome to my PlayStation Studios open letter. We're going to be breaking this up into 5 different segments. My first segment being the PlayStation of Japan Studios closing, the second segment being dead and dormant IPs, the third of which being the death of the PS3, PSP, and Vita stores, and of course the CMOS battery issues, the fourth and final one being the AAA game brand, and of course the fifth segment being my closing thoughts. With that all out of the way, I want to preface this before we jump into everything and say this is not a roast at PlayStation or Sony. This isn't me dragging them through the mud. This isn't me making fun of them. This isn't me belittling the company. I don't know what's going on in there. I don't work for them. I don't understand. This is all from the perspective of a fan, a person who's on the outside looking in from everything that I'm seeing and some things that I would love to see different, as they can potentially lose me and a couple of other people's kind of business because we're just like, hey, things are changing quite rapidly and we're not sure if we're a fan of it. Now, does this mean I'm going to boycott or, talk trash on them or make fun of them and all that? Absolutely not, but I do want to openly discuss kind of my issues with this company. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the closing of Japan Studios and kind of my thoughts on that. I just want to preface this and jump right into it and say this is very heartbreaking and upsetting for me. The team Asobi worked very hard on Astro's Playroom, and I believe they also took a crack at Knack, no pun intended. And I'm sure those games are really great. I really loved Astro's Playroom and Astrobot's Rescue Mission. Personally, my favorite PlayStation VR title on the market, and when it was given away for free, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, that game is just awesome, man. It's so really great. It's incredible, and it's just a shame to see that these guys that have worked with other people and have worked on such incredible titles as Ape Escape, Work Time Fun, the Team Siren guys in them worked on Siren, Patapon, Gravity Rush, which Gravity Rush 2 is one of my all-time favorites, Soul Sacrifice, the Shadow of the Colossus titles, along with Ico, and of course The Last Guardian, and the list goes on and on with the companies they worked with and brought in with Japan Studios' help to make incredible titles. Is just kind of gone. It's kind of just not there, and it's really frustrating to know that we won't get that type of gameplay or those types of interesting mechanics and graphic and art styles that these games brought to the table, and we just won't see that ever again because they're focusing pretty much hardcore on Western AAA titles, and to me personally at that, not even really entertaining or interesting ones. My biggest issues with the modern kind of Western AAA games that they've been pouring out is a lot of them feel kind of repetitive and the same. It's getting a little difficult to tell the difference between an Uncharted and a Last of Us other than a couple of setting and set dressing changes. It's a little bit of a frustration to see another giant open world kind of, I guess, game that's not focused on guns or whatever, more focused on melee combat and bows and arrows like Ghost of Tsushima and Horizon Zero Dawn, right? And it feels like Sony is kind of stepping away from that completely as we enter into this AAA Western landscape where it's going to be okay, we need to turn on another Horizon, we need to turn out another Spider-Man, etc., etc. As great as and fun as those games can be, it's going to get stale after a while. It really is. And what's going to happen once they run into the third or fourth game of the franchise, right? What's going to happen when those games inevitably, meet their end and we have to move on? Are we going to get some new blood finally? Are we going to get some new IPs, kind of like Ghost of Tsushima? And even then, are they going to play similarly to what we just played for the last couple generations? Or are we going to get something brand new and fresh and unique? That was kind of my biggest issue with Naughty Dog, right? That's a little frustrating, knowing what Sony has put out with its Japan Studios and the really innovative and unique stories that they've told and tales that they've spun. And we're kind of just devolving into this, and that's a little frustrating for me as someone who did really enjoy the more unique mechanics that Japan Studios provided, right? That's all I wanted to say on that topic. Sorry if that was a little bit rambly. It's just frustrating to see that kind of them go down that path. I'm still excited for more work that they put out with Astrobot and stuff, and maybe this isn't the end of them as they are just absorbed, right? They are just Asobi now. Maybe this isn't the end, but with all the people that, said on Twitter that they're leaving and that they had a great time there and stuff like that, it does kind of paint to me the end of an era, if you will, and that's a bit on the sad side. Our second biggest topic is the dead and dormant IPs that I just don't know why they haven't even attempted to bring them back with the PS4 gen, and hopefully they will come back during the PS5 gen. Now, this could instantly date the video if they make announcements, of course, so take this with a bunch of grains of salt, and this is definitely more opinion-based than before, where before I could kind of see where everyone could kind of come to an agreement there that it just sucks to lose a studio. Here, this is definitely more me just kind of talking about what I would like to see them do if we are going towards that Western game shift. For examples and starters, despite us getting some pretty pretty fun new IPs. They're not doing enough to be fresh and unique in my opinion, despite how fun they can be. Destruction All-Stars instantly comes to mind as it was a very bare bones kind of destruction game and really takes out what makes destruction derby games so fun, especially considering Sony has a franchise right there called Twisted Metal that could easily handle that niche for us. When I played Destruction All-Stars, I felt like I was constantly not really having a lot of fun destroying cars. You have to build up your breaker meter, you go in there, you do a little bit of, destroying, and that's kind of it. But when it comes to Twisted Metal, you're always on the move, you're always breaking stuff apart, you're always opening pathways into the track or whatever it may be to make the arena feel dynamic and fresh and fun to take on at all times, thanks to the variety of power-ups you gain, the variety of different vehicles you can drive, and all the crazy cast of characters you get to interact with. And that's what makes Twisted Metal so fun. It's kind of mature, it's a little bit gritty, and there's a ton of insane epic action you can pull off because of the plethora of power-ups you can pick up and varieties of locations you get to explore. And I would love to see that game come back in a 4K 60 FPS way, especially as a PS Plus title or a $20 kind of online only experience, which I'm completely fine with. And I think that would be a great time to put out, instead of just making it this weird live action single player but not multiplayer online pass buying experience that it was on the PS3. It was very definitely a product of its generation where they were doing so much new stuff and none of it really stuck. And I feel like if they just went back to basics and just gave us new characters, Sweet Tooth, everyone in there, and you just do your thing, it would be a pretty fun time and definitely would get a lot of clout on Twitch and Twitter and stuff like that. And I could see it being played quite frequently, and if at not the very least, have a pretty niche active PS5 user base that will come back to it time and time out. Another one that I am mind-boggled that hasn't come back is Siphon Filter. This is a franchise that is basically like made for the current state of Sony right now, a tactical third-person stealth espionage title, the likes of which has basically not been seen by anyone for the last couple years because Splinter Cell upped and left. I mean, we haven't heard anything from Splinter Cell really, and every game out there is pulling and taking elements from it, but we don't have that traditional espionage stealth experience, and Sony could easily swoop right in and make it, you know what I mean? So I'm hoping someone is already working on it, and I'm pretty confident that they're going to announce a Siphon Filter or something of that nature soon. But they absolutely have to put this one out for PS5. I mean, you guys already know how impactful this would be, and they cannot let Microsoft beat him to the punch here with the new Perfect Dark on its way by the collective, right? If Microsoft puts out a new stealth kind of tactical spy espionage game before Sony, that's gonna cause a lot of head turns, because let's be real, a lot of people are looking for these types of experiences in those AAA markets, you know what I mean? So we'll have to wait and see, but that would sell, right? We all know that would sell. I would buy it, you would buy it. That's the game that needs to come back. Again, could date the video, but I would love to see a new Siphon Filter. Finally, we have last two are my big multiplayer titles I would love to see come back. The first of which being a 5v5 version of SOCOM or a 6v6 or whatever it may be. SOCOM just seems like it fits, right? Give us a just a basic Call of Duty-esque campaign with some tactical gameplay, maybe more in lines of the old school Rainbow Six Vegas titles and things like that, and we would all eat that up pretty much, right? I don't think there'd be too many complaints, but give us a really fun tactical breakneck kind of Valorant style, CSGO style FPS or third person shooter in the SOCOM kind of licensed world. Maybe make it a PS Plus game, maybe make it a $40 game on the PlayStation Store, and with a $60 deluxe edition for physical or whatever it may be, whatever they do these days with the companies, and that's gonna sell, right? That's definitely gonna sell. I won't go into Japanese titles like Parappa the Rappa and Wild Arms and stuff like that. I feel like that's way too far-fetched and has a lot of legal muddied ground to talk about and step into, so we'll just kind of leave that to the side. I'm sure you guys would speculate and go crazy in the comments below. There's ones here, why isn't there Sly Cooper, why isn't there this and that? Completely understand where you're coming from, completely agree, even depending on what game it is, right? But this is just my thoughts, and like I said, this is all very opinionated, and it's just stuff that I would feel like would shake the landscape up just enough so we're not just getting the same third person kind of open world, go here, do this, go here, talk to him, or third person walking, beat up, set piece, walking, beat up, talking, you know what I mean, simulators that we've been getting. So just my thoughts. Next, we got to talk about the death of the PS3, PSP, and Vita store, and of course the CMOS battery issue. For those of you guys that are uninformed, if your PS3 CMOS battery dies, you will inevitably lose license to a lot of your digital titles that you've purchased throughout the PS3's lifespan. There's a great video kind of discussing this by Hikikori Media, the likes of which will be linked down below in the description and in this card up above. So if you want to further get nuanced on that and have a little bit more knowledge going into this segment, you can click on that video and come back. I strongly recommend you do, as it talks about a lot of stuff in great detail. To get back to what I was talking about, it just obviously creates the issue of why isn't there backwards compatibility for the PS4 and PS5 when it comes to PS1, 2, and 3 classic titles? PlayStation Now, quite simply, is not enough in my opinion. Streaming your games directly from a PS3 or a Gaikai server just doesn't hit the same nor play the same as being able to either have a really strong emulation kind of system, or, you know, just letting us pop the disc in and play them, you know, with the PS2 and PS1 titles that have definitely by now should be on PS4 or 5 in some way, shape, or form. This is something that I will later talk about also in depth with Nintendo, much more so on their end, because yeah, we'll get to them when we get to them, but it is frustrating that Sony isn't really putting a lot of effort into preserving a lot of their classic titles. I mean, PS1, 2, and 3 still have a lot of games on there, with Mega Man Legends and things instantly coming to mind, the Darkstalker games and whatever, that aren't playable on modern day consoles that a lot of people want to play. And you see it with Fightcade, and you see it with a variety of Reddits and stuff that people want to sink their teeth into. And want to know what these guys have to ask? They have to go around asking, hey, where can I get a ROM, right? Where can I get a ROM so I can play this game in such and such way, right? Where can I, you know, how can I support the devs? It's like, you can't, right? Especially with these stores closing, it's going to open the issue of, do we have to pirate these games? Do we have to jailbreak? Is it even piracy if we can't legally obtain these games in any way, shape, or form, right? It's opening up a lot of that gray area and questions that we gotta talk about. So the reason why I'm upset is we don't have a lot of backwards compatibility with those 1, 2, 3 generations of consoles, and to go back and play a lot of their big back catalog, great titles like Metal Gear Solid 4, for example, we can't play. There's no way for us to get those games on my PS5, pop it in and check it out. And that's super frustrating as a fan of preserving retro titles. I honestly got my start from learning and exploring retro games. That's been my biggest thing as a gamer, is going back and looking through the back catalog I missed out on because I grew up in the 2000s, and I've always been intrigued and in love, infatuated, if you will, with how these guys sat down and made such incredible experiences, and how these game franchises have evolved from, you know, 1990 all the way to 2021, or for some people how they stopped evolving, or how their games ended, or whatever may be. Like, there's a lot of us out there like that, and we can't physically sit down and play these games and experience them because there is no way except for this piracy or downloading an emulator and downloading those ROMs to check this out. And that is insanely frustrating, especially when we get to the point of people going out of their ways to take down these ROM sites, take down these places to play your titles, when there's no way for us to legally play them if you're just going to delist them or take down your stores a couple years down the road. I think that's scummy. I don't think that's fair, and I really hope that PlayStation is hearing and understanding that we do want backwards compatibility, and I hope that they do something in their power to put those games on the PlayStation 5, or, you know, open that virtual kind of console up for those types of I guess people like us. So hopefully that's a thing they'll do, but I'm doubtful with some of their recent moves, right? I think the biggest blow is when you look at a company like Microsoft and you see what they're doing with the Series X and S, it's mind-boggling. These guys aren't just putting the original Xbox and 360 titles on their console, they're also enhancing the way they are played. Their FPSs are usually locked, they're using FPS boost and things in the background of the emulator to give us that extra speed, and with the future of them developing things and putting more games hopefully soon, we're going to see even bigger library of original Xbox and Xbox 360 titles, because yes, to be fair, there is only so many licenses they can grab. There is only so many things they can do, but at least Microsoft is trying. At least they're doing what they can to put their games out there. Even their obscure as heck titles like Phantom Dust for the original Xbox has an Xbox Series X and S port. Like, that boggles my mind. 60 FPS and everything. Like, that type of stuff that you would have never guessed that was, hey, that was an Xbox exclusive, and you go back to their history and their backlog and you can find it and you can play it. That is insanely cool. And PlayStation just doesn't really have that, and that is very frustrating considering they have a lot more games in their library that are like that. You may get the odd Parappa the Rappa remaster, but even then it's not nearly as good as the base game, or your Patapon or Loco Roco remasters or whatever, but it's still not going to be putting in the same amount of work as say some of their other titles. This also goes to show that same in the similar vein with the PS3, I also want to talk about how there's no PSP or even Vita back compat. I think that's frustrating because Vita has a lot of awesome titles along with the PSP, and sure, a good chunk of them did get ported. Some of them still have yet to come over, like Soul Sacrifice, for example, is a game I kind of brought up earlier. Nowhere to be seen unless you have a Vita, and a lot of PSP titles, of course, are left to the wayside. Now, again, that is both relying on the third-party companies that are trying to get their say-so to put those games on there, but if PlayStation just used an emulator of sorts to play those games and just get a license to put them up there, which I'm sure they have the money for, it's just the best of both worlds for everyone involved. Sony gets a little bit of the cut, the other developers get to put their games out there without having to do a full upscale remaster or whatnot, and of course we get to preserve some incredibly awesome titles, and I get to give my money to show that, hey, I really want more of these types of games to be made. It wasn't just a one-off handheld experience. It's just sad. Some of the best ways to play titles like Street Fighter 3 Alpha or Power Stone Collection, or one that always comes to mind is Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7, are all on the PSP, right? Or all on different handheld consoles, and the only way to get them, which is about to go away, is either getting them off eBay for pretty high prices, or, well, now having to pirate them because there's no way to play them kind of legally or whatever, which is extremely frustrating. And finally, just a brief little touch on the AAA rant that I mentioned earlier. There's just some stuff that I'm not a huge fan of. My biggest one is Insomniac. I feel like these guys are known for making really wild titles, right? And they're just kind of relegated to Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank right now. And it feels like ever since they've been with Sony, that's all they've been putting out is Ratchet & Clank and Spider-Man. Like, these guys worked on Spyro, right? Like, these guys worked on Fuse and Resistance, and these games are all pretty good fun, and now they're just churning out Ratchet & Clank and Spider-Man, and every time a new console comes out, it's another Ratchet & Clank game, and it's getting really old, man. Like, there's only so much you can do with this Lombax before I'm just kind of sick of seeing him everywhere, because he doesn't have that, like, Mario or like Zelda appeal or whatever. Like, he's kind of just doing the same old, so much to the fact that his PS4 game was literally him doing the same old with a slight new coat of paint, as it was just a reboot essentially of the first Ratchet & Clank, and a lazy one at that kind of just retreads a lot of the stuff that you've seen either in the movie or poorly redoes some of the stuff that was in the PS2 title, the likes of which we can't even play on the PS4/5, by the way. I don't think there's an HD collection for Ratchet & Clank 1, 2, and 3, sadly, which is really unfortunate. So you guys get where I'm kind of coming from, is there's just a lot of nostalgia pandering in that department, and it's a little frustrating that they can't work on a Sunset Overdrive 2 or something kind of fresh and unique like a Stormland 2 or whatever maybe that Insomniac wants to cook up, because they're just kind of making the same things again, which is a little bit on the annoying side. Another one is Naughty Dog. I've never been a huge fan of Naughty Dog personally. They're not bad by any means. I still think Uncharted 2 is a really great action game, and they're fun to play through. They're just not really for me, right? And it's kind of annoying to see them kind of churn out the same old with Last of Us 2 and Uncharted, and then they're just kind of, who knows what's going to be next, but Last of Us 3, and then another third-person kind of action-adventure title that just looks really pretty with some set pieces. Like, once you played one, you kind of played them all, it feels like, in a lot of ways. Then you got God of War, which, it's fine, it's fun, but it has a great story, but the gameplay just really isn't for me, right? It gets very repetitive and very fast for me personally. Then, of course, you know, we got Sucker Punch, and, you know, Infamous is great. And then they made Ghost of Tsushima, which was fine. Guerrilla's out here with their new IP, Horizon Zero Dawn, which personally has the most potential out of everything, because they really try to spice up that open world formula quite a bit, being able to take control of the robots and stuff in the gameplay. But the story is what kind of failed to grab me in that game. I really liked its gameplay for once, and I was like, oh, there's something kind of fresh with the open world stuff, but the story was kind of okay for me personally. So yeah, just a little mini rant on how I feel about the AAA landscape for Sony. Feels like they always just kind of see what's popular in the mainstream and try to copy that and add their, you know, Sony twist to it, which is fine. And if not that, they fell, and then they just kind of shooed the company away like nothing ever happened. I think the biggest offender of that was the Order 1886. They were like, Gears of War is pretty big. We gotta have Sony's Gears of War, right? Kind of like Killzone. We had to have Sony's kind of Halo style game, right? And it came out and it flopped. It didn't flop, but, you know, didn't really do the best as they were expecting. We haven't really heard anything from that studio since, you know, and I don't even know if they're even a thing anymore, really. It's quite upsetting, but yeah. The biggest takeaway is I hope that we do get some more backwards compatibility. I hope that they're more open and clear with what's going on with that CMOS battery issue. And I hope that they start bringing back some of those dead dormant IP, as I mentioned earlier, and just doing what we can do to fully experience the PlayStation library if you are going to be sheltering the PS3, PSP, and Vita stores, right? That is all I care about. Now, maybe during the summer, they're going to make a bombshell announcement that they're putting all their PS3 games on PlayStation 5 or whatever it may be, right? And that would be awesome. And this video will be void. I might even take it down, honestly, if something like that happens. But if it doesn't, and we keep going down kind of the path we're going down, then yeah, we gotta talk about this, because this is a huge issue. You guys are not preserving your incredibly awesome titles, and unlike the, say, Wii U or something like that, where you can go back about a console generation, with the PS3, you gotta go back 2, and now it's at the point where they're not even sold in stores, right? Now we gotta go to eBay to buy it, right? And then you have to go to their stores, and oop, now you can't even go to your stores to buy them. So now people have no choice except for either emulating these games on PC, or, like I mentioned earlier, pirating these games to play PS3 titles, and that's a huge issue. We don't want it to come to that, right? We don't want it to come to people's you know, Google Drives or whatever may be, having to preserve such incredible titles. That's where my frustration comes into play, especially since you guys are going out of your way, or these companies go out of their way to strike these ROM sites down and strip them away and act like these games are every single one of them are inevitably going to get like some HD remaster or whatnot. Nope, still waiting for my Bloody Roar HD remaster. It's not gonna happen, Sony. I don't know what to tell you. Like, Konami don't care about no Bloody Roar, you know what I mean? And that's where my frustration lies. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is, again, an open podcast style thing, so don't expect anything too highly edited or whatnot. There's definitely some audio issues, my fault. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you have anything you want to comment, please tell me down below. If you like what you're hearing or like what you see, thanks. I'm doing reviews and top 10s and stuff on my channel. You can click them down below, and everything will be linked. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Peace. Have a great one.